And joining us now, also on the front lines, Dr. Anthony Fauci, a key member of the White House's task force and the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Doctor, good morning. It's good to see you again. Appreciate you being with us.
Good to be with you.
Let me ask you about what Vice President Pence said yesterday. He said the U.S. trajectory right now most closely resembles Italy. That is not great news. Italy right now represents more than a quarter, almost 30% of all global deaths from COVID-19. Can you explain why the U.S. looks like it's on the same path as Italy right now?
Yeah. It's just the reality, Savannah. I mean, it's the truth. If you look at the curves of the acceleration of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, you know, it's superimposed, corrected for population. It's a really serious issue. I mean, Italy got hit very hard, and it's very clear that we are getting hit very hard. Right now, the epicenter of it in the United States is New York City. But as you see, it's not going to be confined to New York City. We're going to be seeing this kind of thing in other large cities. It's a very difficult situation, as was predicted. This is going to get worse before it gets better, for sure.
The Surgeon General was on with us just yesterday and said, my advice is that the 30-day guidelines to stay home from the federal government amount to a national stay-at-home order. Is that how you see it, too? Do you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at what's in those 30-day recommendations of the guidelines, that's essentially what it is. I mean, I know it's difficult, but we're having a lot of suffering, a lot of death. This is inconvenient from an economic and a personal standpoint, but we just have to do it. That is our major weapon against this virus right now. Yeah. We don't have a vaccine that's deployable. This is the only thing we have. And we can get through it if everybody really leans forward and pushes on this.
Can I ask you about that? You know, more states yesterday started having these stay-at-home orders, but not all states do. And even the states that do, some have exemptions. Florida exempts religious services in some cases. I saw New Hampshire had exempted florists at one point. Arizona had exempted hair salons at some point. I mean, with all due deference to states, shouldn't there be a national order, a national lockdown, a requirement, rather than this hodgepodge piecemeal method?
You know, you have a point there, Savannah, but it's one of those things that in our country there still is that issue of central government versus the ability and the right of a state to make their own decision. But again, I agree with you. When you see things like some of those exemptions, I mean, I can't make any official proclamations here, but I can say really seriously consider, are those exemptions appropriate when you think about what's going on? And I urge the people at the leadership at the state level to really take a close look at those kinds of decisions.
Doctor, we're all getting a little bit of a medical education, unfortunately, in these times. And you said on an interview the other day that there was something mysterious, that was my word, not yours, about the pathogenesis of this disease. That was your word, pathogenesis. You said that some people have mild and even no symptoms, and then others who aren't necessarily old with underlying illness get really, really sick, and we just don't know why. Are we any closer to figuring that out?
No, that's going to require what we call natural history studies. I mean, I have been puzzled from the beginning. I mean, that sharp dichotomy that said, you know, if you're older or if you have an underlying condition, you get into trouble. If you're younger, the likelihood of that is still very low, which it is. But it is very strange how one individual can get infected and have either mild or no symptoms, and another individual could rapidly deteriorate with viral pneumonia and respiratory failure. There's something in mechanism, whether it's genetic, whether it's immune response. The one thing I can say that we have to be humble. I've been doing infectious diseases now for almost 50 years. And I could tell you, I don't fully understand exactly what the mechanism of that is, and we really need to figure it out. Yeah. Because it can be completely devastating rapidly in one person and absolutely nothing in another person.
I know our best brains are on it. There's a new study in the journal Nature that showed patients with mild symptoms, can shed high levels of the virus early on during the first week of infection. I don't have to tell you how disturbing that is. Do you credit that study?
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth. I mean, we're seeing a lot of things now that are falling into place. Remember, weeks ago when I interviewed with you, I said we know a lot, but there's still a lot that we don't know. I mean, the idea of someone who's asymptomatic shedding high titers of virus is very disturbing, because that person could be out there feeling well and inadvertently and innocently spreading the infection.
Dr. Fauci, it's horrendous to even have to ask you about this, but there's a report in the Washington Post that suggests there have been threats against you, some from admirers, well, some threats, and then some disturbing interest from admirers, but whatever it is, that you've had to increase your security detail. I'm not asking for the details of that, but I will ask you if you yourself feel personally threatened at all. Do you feel safe? Do you feel that your family is safe?
You know, I do, Samantha. I mean, I've chosen this life. I mean, I know what it is. There are things about it that sometimes are disturbing, but you just focus on the job you have to do and just put all that other stuff aside and try as best as possible not to pay attention to it and just forge ahead. We have a really, really very, very difficult situation ahead of us. All of that other stuff is secondary.
Are you okay? Your voice does not sound great. I'm hoping it's just because you've been doing a lot of interviews and briefings and stuff.
No, I am fine. I'm physically fine. But, you know, all I do all day long is brief people, governors, senators, White House, interviews. I just need to keep my mouth shut for a little while. I think it'll get better.
Well, tea with a little honey and lemon for the doctor, okay? Thank you for being with us this morning.
All right.
Our viewers appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.